Hello there. Welcome to the Maker Manager Money Podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, founders, business owners, and business partnerships. From startups to stay-ups, to inspire entrepreneurs to keep going and future entrepreneurs to just start. My name is Kyle Knowles, and it's a Wednesday evening at Kiln Lehigh. Kiln is killing it in the co-working space. They are the GOAT. They are the LeBron James of co-working communities. Today's guest is Daniel Driggs. Daniel is the founder of Crisp Catering. The birth of Crisp Catering coincided with the birth of his first child. While celebrating this joyous occasion in the hospital, Daniel, alongside his wife Abby, envisioned creating the world's best catering company. This idea sprang from Daniel's frustrations about the lackluster and often uninspired food served at wedding receptions. Daniel saw an opportunity to revolutionize this by offering freshly prepared, diverse, and delicious catering options. Since that epiphany, Crisp Catering has experienced meteoric growth, catering to over 1,200 events across more than 200 locations in Utah. Daniel and Abby have remained a formidable team throughout this journey, embodying the core values that make Crisp Catering stand out: honesty, care, hard work, kindness, a hunger for improvement, and a focus on others. Before founding Crisp Catering in 2021, Daniel honed his skills and understanding of the industry as the catering manager for Thirst Drinks. Daniel earned a bachelor's degree in English from Utah Valley University. Welcome to the Maker Manager Money Podcast, Daniel.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I love this, and this is so cool. It's been fun to get to know you. It's been fun and I'm excited to keep getting to know you through this podcast. So thank you for having us here.
Yeah,
for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for being here. I just wanted to say that the past two guests are such a great segue to your episode, because last week I was sitting across from Scott Robbins, who is the founder of Aspen Press, and he's worked hard his whole life. And I know this is one of your core values, but it's an episode where it's just, it's actually entitled "Get Off Your Butt and Do It," because that's what his dad used to say to him all the time. And he says it now. Scott says it now. And the week before that, I was in Seattle sitting across from LaShawn Smith, who literally wrote the book on values-based business design. And so it's amazing that you have these. When I read your 6 values, I was like, wow, I just went through this whole exercise in that book to establish values even for myself and for what I'm doing with this podcast. So I love the fact that you sat down, and let's just start there. Like, how did you come up with the values for Crisp Catering?
It's very interesting. So we kind of base our whole company on a couple different promises. So the core values is what I'm kind of looking for in employees, and they promise in their interview and they promise in promotion meetings and anything like that, that they will live these 6 core values. And that was important to me because I need to be able to trust these people. I need to be able to trust them with weddings and with events and some of the biggest days in people's lives. And so for me, it's the first and most important thing is understanding what kind of culture we're trying to bring, the people we're trying to bring, the service we're trying to bring, and every hiring, firing, promotion has always been based on these 6 things. And I didn't care to make them like pretty or fancy or like add all the flour, and because no one remembers it. We're honest. We care. We work hard. We are hungry to improve. That's the only one I added a little bit of love to, because it's funny. We're a catering company and it's hungry to improve. We're kind always. That's important to me because, and it, especially important in catering because we're dealing with a very high stress situation and a really high stress bride or mother of the bride And now I'm forgetting the last one. Now the last core values, I don't remember where I
let's see.
Focus on others.
Yeah,
there we
focus
go.
on others.
Yes,
yeah.
and in catering, there's so many moving parts. It's the only employees I wanted to work with, the people I wanted to surround myself with are people who can put others before themselves. They're not the ones when we're unloading a van filled with tons of food and coolers that are hundreds of pounds and things like that. They're not the ones that are just grabbing the menu and walking it inside, pretending like they can't get anything else, and then leaving the rest of their team to grab these coolers and these really heavy, annoying to grab things filling in that fill our van or that we need for the event. And so those 6 things are primarily employee focused because those are the people that's the person I want to be first off. And I hold myself to these standards and I look at myself in those 6 categories. And if I'm not being honest, or if I'm not caring, if I don't care about someone's event, if someone was mean or whatever it is, and I just am like, I don't care about serving you. I cancel their event because I can't, it's too stressful for me to not live by those core values myself. And I expect my team to live by those. I expect my team to follow those. And again, every hiring, firing, and promotion is based on those 6 things.
So when you do employee reviews, do you actually walk through
every time we go through those 6
core
things?
values?
Yes.
Okay.
Every training we go through those 6. And it's a little different because I only see my employees once, either at events and we're running crazy, or at these trainings or other things. But it's funny because now that I don't go to every single event, there's employees that I don't know that have these memorized. And it's so fun because we give rewards for those that memorize these 6 things because it's been such a key part of our business. And it's 90% of the reason why I trust my team to handle these weddings and handle these events. And as they're thinking about those 6 things, we care. We're kind of always, when those things kind of pop up, when things get stressful or when crap hits the fan, in those moments, that's when I'm hoping those 6 ideals and 6 values pop up. And what's so cool is my team knows that and they know I care about that. And if someone comes to me with I want a promotion, I want a raise, whatever, I go back to one of those 6 things. If they're short on one, if they're sometimes mean, if they sometimes at events don't have a smile throughout the event or kind of seem grumpy at events or sit on their phone or whatever it is, it's like, this is why. And we walk it back based on the core value, not on what they're doing or anything like that. Because if they care, they're trying, they're working hard, then all of those things sort themselves out.
Okay. And then how did you come up with 6 then? What was the thought process of 6? And I know your logo.
Our logo is a
6-sided
hexagon. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, that's 6, right?
I think it is. I was like going octagon. Let's see, that's 8.
Yes, it's 6. It's a hexagon. If it's not, we can
I did English, not math.
Yes,
okay,
that's where I'm at. I'm an English major. Thank you for reading that. So we know. So it was, yes, it's the 6 sides of the hexagon. And initially I knew I wanted between 4 and 6 core values. And we already had a really cool logo. That was one of the first things we made and we liked. And what's interesting about branding, and this is why the logo is the way it is, it's a C with a hexagon in it, is as a caterer, I can't brand a color. If I'm bright purple at someone's wedding, they're going to kill me because
unless they chose purple,
chose purple, and that's 100. And so it's hard. So you can't clash, and so you have to be. Typically, it's black and white. Some companies have green, some companies have, but I didn't like that. It stressed me out. I'm like, sometimes green clashes hard with all these colors, and so we went strict black and white with a little bit of gold. There's some gold in there, so we have some flavor in there. But we wanted to brand that shape is what we were looking at with branding. And so that's kind of how we got to our logo. And then with the core values, it's just a good way. Some people are visual learners. Some people they hear it. Some people, whatever it is, I wanted everyone to feel like they could learn these, whether it's visually, they're looking at the hexagon, they can see which side corresponds to their core value they're going for, or they just need to hear it. But we wanted it to be kind of everywhere. We have posters with that hexagon in our company with the 6 core values around it. And yeah, it's meant to make it easier to learn, which is part of that.
I love it. I love that you did basically values-based business design when you designed even the business, and it coincides with the logo. So talk about Crisp. Where did you come up with Crisp?
Yes. Funny enough, So even before the hospital room where we decide catering, 2 months before I'd been working at Thirst. I love Thirst. They're the best. They're amazing. And I told my buddy, I was like, hey, I'm starting my own thing. I don't know what it is. And he goes, well, good luck. You're great. And I said, you have me until the day my son's born. And then I'm gone. So it might be 3 months away. It might be 2 months away, might be a month away. And he came a month early. So Thirst was unhappy about the early birth, but it was fun for me we were dragging our feet. We're like, do we do a Rice Krispie company? That was our first thought. And we would try to be the crumble of Rice Krispies. But I love catering. That was a big thing for me, is I kept coming back to catering. Well, how do I do catering? How do I incorporate catering? Because I love being a part of people's biggest events. I love solving the issue of food, which is stressful. You don't want your great aunt making her famous meatballs or whatever. You want her to enjoy. You don't want your cousins behind serving all of the food. You want to enjoy. And so for me, that's something I loved about that I kept coming back to. And so we were in the hospital room, and that's when we decided, it's like, do we go with the Rice Krispie company or do we go with this catering? And then it was like, all right, well, we might not be doing the Rice Krispie company, but it's still crisp. Crisp is still nice. It's crisp. It's clean. And that's kind of came from Rice Krispies, funny enough. So that's my, it was kind of the best of both worlds. We got the name and kept catering, which I love, and I'm happy to be a part of.
That's really cool. So do you actually, does Crisp Catering do Rice Krispie treats or anything with Rice Krispies?
Yes, we have. It took a second. So funny enough, that was what, like in our first year, we tried 30 different Rice Krispie recipes. We just could not perfect it. And so it was the biggest stress. I was like, no, we need Rice Krispies. And I'm working with people and I'm like, no, this is not good enough. And the hard part is with catering is you have to make so many so fast, and it has to stay well for 5 or 6 hours. And so Rice Krispies were a challenge for a while. And then we just perfected it this year. Happy about it. Love it. Our Rice Krispies are amazing. I'll bring you some, Kyle. That's an easy one.
I can't wait because I love Rice Krispie treats. Are you doing Scotcheroos or anything?
No,
anything
so
else?
Have regular Rice Krispies. We have and we have cocoa and Fruity Pebble, but that's mainly our kind of that's a part of what we do. But really, our desserts are way more experiential, and whether it's our desserts, our foods, our entrees, our sides, we want it to be really experiential. So a big thing for me is like we have milkshakes where we're making it right there. We have a blender, we have a couple things that we're making these milkshakes for you right there. It tastes amazing. It tastes better. Same thing with donuts. We have these cake presses. So we do a cake donut, and it's delicious, but we press the cake donuts right in front of you. And so it's way more experiential. although I love my Rice Krispies, they're probably the least experiential because we make them beforehand, and it's too hard to make Rice Krispies in person and give you that element. And so we set it up cute, but it's not. Yeah. So if that answered your question,
it does. So you're starting Crisp Catering.
Yeah.
You have this epiphany.
Yeah.
You're in the hospital room. Your first child is born.
Yes.
You're calling in and giving your 2 weeks. I don't know, like what?
No, literally, I told
just
Ethan,
said,
I said,
as soon as the baby's
day
born.
it happens, because
Okay.
it's hard. Yeah, what are you going to do? Give 2 weeks and then not show up because you're with your kid?
Right.
That was the hard thing. Is it was like, so I call Ethan. Ethan's the owner of Thirst, and I'm like, hey, dude, literally before he's born, I call him and I go, or I just text him maybe, and I said, hey, he's coming.
He's coming today.
Yeah, he's coming today. Water broke. Good luck with everything. Let me know if you have any or any more questions. And the nice thing is it was running itself pretty much. And then we hired a couple people to replace me on the few things. And I'd been training him for a month. So it was pretty obvious that I'm leaving, and we kind of set him up on a good spot. But yeah, we're the day he was born, it was like, and what was fun is I started with a couple buddies that had done catering and been with me and actually at Thirst. So when we left Thirst, there were a couple people that Ethan's like, hey, I'm wanting to hire a more full-time person that's going to like take over like 3 of these people's jobs. And so I brought a couple of them with me to start Crisp. And so that was a really fun experience. And we're building these recipes. I hired a professional chef from one of the chefs at Table X. I don't know if I've
never heard.
It's
a restaurant,
really nice restaurant in Salt Lake, Mill Creek area.
Okay.
And she helped make all of these recipes, and we're taste tests and everything. It was the funnest few months before we said, cool, this is our menu. This is what we're doing. And we started with like 4 things on our menu. We had a soda bar, we had paninis, we had fries, and we had donuts. That was it. We had fondue too. I just remembered. You could pick which dessert you wanted. And they're awesome. Almost all of those things have stayed on our menu besides fondue. And that's just, I just had a hard time with fondue. Not because we couldn't make it. It's just, you have a hard time when kids are putting their hands in the chocolate fountain and just ruining all of this chocolate, like hundreds of dollars of chocolate. And you're like, and it's too expensive. So we've removed fondue. I could still probably do fondue, but those were the 4 or 5 starting spots, and we kind of made them in our kitchen at first, or for us, and we're taste testing them all and figuring it out. And then we sold our first event, and that was the scariest thing of my life, because I'm like, oh, people want to try this? And they trust us. And we had a website, and we did a Google ad, and it was just fun. That whole process of creation, of building, of figuring it out was a really fun month and a half. Stressful because we hadn't gotten any events yet, and we needed those and I'm paying out of my pocket this payroll and things like that. But it was a fun little couple months. I look back on that time as a very fond memory. Stressful, but fun, where it's like, oh, we want to make this perfect. We want to have these recipes down. We want to know how we're going to systematically, do this. And my wife was amazing, even though she's taking care of our little boy. She's like helping us in the kitchen, taste testing, having fun with us, creating our presentation, what people care about. She has a way better eye on that than I do. And so, it's just a fun little time.
So it took you about 2 months to set up a website, figure out that you're Crisp Catering, bring some employees on,
yes,
and your taste testing.
Yeah.
But your first customer came through a Google ad?
Yeah, Google ad. And that was, who was it? Well, now I'm remembering some funny events right at the beginning because we're just trying to figure out anything. I think we did an event for Weave, and that could have been one of the worst events we've ever done, which was, bless their hearts, they're amazing people, love them, and they were very kind, even though we were like, we don't know what we're doing. But no, the first event was for a law firm, and it was This Is the Place. It was, and we start plugging things into, and this is the crazy thing is they hire you and you're like, yeah, we can cater 200 people. But what you don't know is you're going to these old buildings at This Is the Place, and they don't have the power requirements you need to plug in a fryer or a panini press. So we gave ourselves like more than ample time to set up. But pretty soon we found out every place we're plugging into is flipping breakers. And so we're like running around This Is the Place with their maintenance guy, and we figured it out. And it was, we're pressing paninis fast. We're getting through the line, and fries just almost didn't work at all, which was painful, but they were cool. They were really nice company because we kind of prefaced them with, hey, you're actually our first event, but so we'll give you a deal. But we're grateful you would try us out. This was like December. It was their Christmas party, and it worked. And even though the fries didn't, everything else worked. The food was great. The people were enjoying it, and that was the first breath of fresh air of this is gonna work. Like, yeah, we had a couple kinks. There were a couple issues. There were a couple, small system errors. But this is going to work. We're going to be able to succeed. And I remember I went home. I called my mom. I haven't cried in years, and I just bawled my eyes out. I'm like, we're going to live. Like, this is going to happen. It's happening. And that's what's stressful when you have employees, when you have other people that believe in your vision. It was a very cool moment to actually trust it myself. Like, I put in the work, but it was the first time it was like, I believe this is real. This is a real legitimate business that's gonna work. So it was cool. Yeah.
So a Google ad leads to the law firm being your first customer. What kind of marketing and promotion are you doing? You must be doing a lot during those first 90 days or whatever. Yeah. What other kind of marketing activities were you doing? Yeah.
So marketing's kind of where we're going to be different than most catering companies. Most catering companies start basically the same way. Great aunt has a really good recipe or is a really good cook. The niece says, hey, can you please cater my wedding? Or can you please do this? And from that event, 3 other people come up and say, this is the best food we've ever had. Please do our event. And that continues because this person's a really good cook. And so most catering companies, that's how they start. Where we're different is I come from a sales and marketing background, and I knew if I got 5 really good products, similar to a Chick-fil-A, similar to a Raising Cane's model of catering, it was the reverse. It was, I'm going to perfect paninis, fries, donuts, soda, and I'm going to make the 4 best catering for that world. And I can add later on, but I'm just going to market that. And so I focus way more on the marketing side. So Facebook groups, Instagram and Facebook ads, TikTok, or less of TikTok. We're just starting on TikTok. I'm liking it. It's too fun. TikTok. But the biggest things were those Facebook and Instagram ads. And then Google ads are helpful for us, but they've taken a second to figure it out. So it took a second to get Google, even though our first event came from it. It took a second till those were really going. Our biggest thing were Facebook and Instagram ads, though, right away.
And now I assume because you've done over 1,200 events and 200 different locations that you're getting word of mouth referrals,
Yes.
people that come to the events and say, oh, I like this panini, whatever.
Yeah.
Can you do my daughter's wedding? Is that
Yes,
happening a lot more now?
That's exactly where we wanted to go, of course, is the word of mouth. Hey, you're doing such a good job. Can you do this? And we wanted that same thing, but we wanted to scale initially to our first, 1,200 events kind of came through our just hard work of like, cool, every dollar we make goes to marketing. And so where other catering companies typically profit, at least in Utah, at like a 20%, we have marketing at 20%. And so profits are like we're sacrificing those profits initially so that we can start having that word of mouth marketing and get through the doors and slowly grow from there. And from that point, most catering companies can grow at a 15% just through word of mouth alone, which is cool year over year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And Utah's a great place to be a catering company, right? There's a lot of weddings here, a lot of events, social events, and things like that. People like to get together here in Utah.
Yes.
But you started is that the tail end of the pandemic, or what was happening when you started?
Yes, it's funny to talk about that. That was almost more at thirst that the pandemic really happened. Is we're refunding every event. We like pandemic hits, and I'm like, we have a couple hundred events that we're just refunding. So I was still, at Thirst, it was, what was interesting is the biggest year before we had kind of gotten there, and Ethan calls me and just goes, dude, let's just sell as many events as we possibly can. Biggest year he had before that was like 100 events. And together we went to 800 events that next year. And that's when COVID kind of hit. And it's like, And a big reason we still probably did 600-700 events that year. And the reason we were able to do it is we were more creative than all of the rest of the competitors, which is also why we got a ton of business. Is even though COVID kind of shut everyone down, people still had weddings that they had planned for 3 years, or events that they had planned, or they wanted to get together. And so they gave money to the companies that were willing to be creative and willing to adapt and willing to change. And so for us, what we did is we started saying, hey, let's do drive-through weddings. And people loved it. Like we did maybe 100 events of drive-through weddings where people would drive by in their cars. We'd hand them a soda or we'd hand them a thing of pretzels. And they'd they'd wave to the bride and groom who were in their wedding dresses and then just keep driving. It was like,
wow.
Yes, it was the most.
I didn't know that was even happening.
Yes.
I never went to one of those. I did a drive-through graduation.
Yes.
But so people were doing that then.
Tons of weddings that way. We did, we had to refund some or postpone them or things like that. We were also willing to adapt. So if someone had a wedding a week later because they were in COVID together for 6 months and they decided they were in love and decided to get married, which happened way more often than you thought. We targeted those couples would call us and we'd do their event 2 days later, 3 days later, whatever it was. Wow. It's like, hey, we want to have a get together. We're getting married. Yeah. And so because we were willing to do that, that's how we just, it's the willingness to say maybe. And that's what's fun about having like two owners of this that are like, let's just do it. We're young. We can work 110 hours a week. It was before I had Hank. So I was like, yeah, I'm like, me and Abby might have a date, but like, let's go hang out. Let's go to these events. Let's stay up till crazy doing a random party or something like that. And since then, they've still been able to keep those same clients and a lot of those same people just because we were willing to capitalize on a bad situation rather than we're refunding everyone. We're going to shut down catering for a second. And it was a really cool experience. And then, I started Crisp right at the tail end of it, and people were partying for a while. Everyone was done being inside and done being stuck, but still a lot of events were kind of coming from that. And that's part of the reason I wanted to start my own around that time, is people were so cooped up. They were ready to party. They were looking for excuses. And so I knew that was a really good opportunity to start my own, because so much more of the market was out there. And so even though it's died down a little bit, people are kind of going back to normal. There are way more parties now than there ever was 3 years ago, or more than 5 years ago. Way more parties now than there were pre-COVID.
And do you feel like that's totally the post-COVID kind of thing, where it's just like they just live events and wanting to get together?
Yeah. They understand being stuck in a house is not fun. So people, yes, they want to get together and they want to do fun events, which is cool.
And I know that caterers have kind of different philosophies for like the minimum amount, the dollar amount, whether you're willing to cater. What's your philosophy about what's the minimum, I guess, dollar amount or people amount or meal amount that you'll do?
So it's totally dependent on the type of catering for me. So we have a couple different options. We have like box lunches. We'll do 5 people. We're happy about that. But if we're going to be prepping for 2 hours, packing a van for 3 or more, than we have a full kitchen crew that's packing vans all day. If we have them that have to pack the van, we have 3 people that come to your event for 3 hours and then go clean up all of the dishes and things like that. In those scenarios, we do have a minimum, and I am going to defer to my website for the answer of that, because I don't remember.
Nice.
Well, it changes. Yeah. That's the nice thing is we want to be at events, and we're in the market of, if we have any possibility, if we're going to make $1 on your event, we will do it, because we want to be out there. We want to be doing events. We want our teams to be working. Even if the profits are $5-10 worth it for us, because we want to be a part of your event. If we have to lose money based on what we pay our team or what food cost is or anything like that, because there's 20 people and you want us there for 5 hours and you want just fries or whatever it is, then we have a minimum, because, and we'll even do those events if you pay the minimum. But that's yes, there is a minimum. So refer to a website exactly what those minimums are, because those change. But truth is we try to, if it makes sense for us, we'll do it, even if we make or just barely break even on it.
Catercrisp.com.
Catercrisp.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And so let's talk about a little bit. Let's talk about your childhood. I love going there. I feel like a psychologist sometimes when I say that. But when you were a child, did you exhibit any kind of entrepreneurial spirit? Did you have a lemonade stand, anything like that when you were younger?
Yes. Well, but in a funny way, my uncle, that's a funny question. I probably have 2 answers to this. First one being, my dad really wanted me to do construction, hard labor. He's like, you'll get tough, whatever. And I was like, I will not do that if it kills me. I will find something else. And he's like, you have 1 day. And so I called my local bakery. So that's actually where a lot of my knowledge comes from in food. And I just said, please give me a job. And so I worked at a bakery. So that's the one funny one where it's like, the truth is there's typically an answer that appeases everyone and gives you what you want. That's one cool rule that I just knew from an early age. It's like, my dad wanted me to work construction. There was no way I was going to do that. And so finding a job that I worked more hours than the construction job, and it totally appeased my dad that I had something that I was doing that was maybe less labor intensive and less rough. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't want to do it. I would love construction. It's fun, but I just didn't want to at the time. The other thing is I have done door-to-door sales since I was like 12. So I had a sidewalk curb painting business when I was 12, and I just knock on doors. It was $20 and I would spray paint the sidewalk, and
you stencil the house number.
Oh yeah. Stencil the house number. And I did that for 2 years, and that actually, or maybe longer, until I was 16. And that's why my dad was mad, is he's like, well, you're only working 3 hours a week, and I was making $100 an hour. And so it's like, why else would I need more than $300, Dad? Like, it was like, why would I do that? And he was like, because you need to learn hard work. And I'm like, well, I can do that in 3 hours. What do you mean? And so it was a very funny situation where that's kind of what led to that, of like, well, I'm doing well. And I'm appreciative of my dad being like, well, no, the principle is, can you work for 20 hours? Can you go to school all day and then work another 20 hours, which was a total different lesson than can you make money? And for me, that was a good thing to learn the difference of and push myself in a different way. Cause yes, I was good at pretending like I was like this cute, innocent child at 13 years old and being like, please, can I spray paint or stencil your driveway or whatever, wherever it was, or curb. And which then lent, so two totally different, jobs, two totally different things as a kid. And then I did door sales till I started at Thirst. That's actually, I went on a mission. I did door sales for pest control, but that was kind of what I was going to do for my career until Ethan called me and said, hey, come sell catering events. And I was like, no. And he said, well, please just do it for a couple months. I fell in love with it. I loved, and then slowly I took over operations at Thirst, and then I started my own. And so it's been a kind of funny process from door-to-door salesman to catering people's weddings. I don't know. It's a weird gap, but it worked.
I think it totally works because I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and sales is kind of like crucial, right? Especially when you're getting a business off the ground. Nothing happens until a sale is made, really. So, yeah.
And it's the most painful. It's still my business. If I could do anything else than sales, I do. And there's problems with that logic, but the fact that I've already proven that I can sell, I force myself to go do visits, to go visit different companies that have used us in the past and try to get their business back or sign them up on contracts. And the ability to ask for something you want is very difficult. And that's what I look at as closing is, hey, I want your business. Totally different than, hey, here's a nice Christmas card, or here's this nice gift we have. If you're willing to ask someone that you either know, or if you're willing to close or ask them for money or things like that, it can get very uncomfortable. And it's just something that you have to do as an entrepreneur. There's times where you have to ask for business. There's times where you have to go knock down someone's door and they're like, hey, are you soliciting? And it's like, oh, yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I'm dropping off cookie dough, whatever. Like, and it's the most painful part of my job still. And I think, but it's been the best knowledge for me, or the best knowledge base that I've been able to do is kind of rely on that and go back to, you just do it. You just go sell, and you know the product better, you know the people better, you know what client you want better than anyone else in your business.
I want to go back to this idea of pushing you towards construction from your father. Was he in construction or?
No, he's actually a lawyer too. So my first event was one of his competitors actually. And so that's been a very funny one where it's like really? You could use me. And I went with your competitor. And
was that on purpose?
I don't know.
It wasn't, because they came through a Google ad, right?
Yes. And the funniest is the event was, it was like half company party, but the other half was like trying to to impress new clients. And the bummer was I'm standing there behind like a soda bar, and the clients know me because they knew my dad, and me and my dad looks, and they're like, hey, we still work with your dad. And I'm like, no, I'm here on behalf of this company. Don't work with my dad. Work with this company.
Because you're sort of selling the company that you're
that hired me.
Yeah, because they're kind of they're basically you become part of that company for a while at a company event, right?
Well, they hire me to impress their guests. Yeah. I'm like,
or other employees if you're doing like an employee
and
event.
So the few customers that work with both my dad and him, it was like, no, I still work with your dad, and I'm like, I don't care. I am, this other guy is paying me, so I am pro this other guy, not my dad. So it was a very funny, random, event for one of the first, or for the first one. It was a very funny event that I keep always looking back on and with a grin on my face with that one. Well,
so your dad wanted you to work construction. You decided to go work for a bakery, and you talked about 20 hours. So are you going to school and then working 20 hours a week?
Yeah,
and
this is in high school.
In high school, you're working 20 hours a week. And this is proving to your dad that you're willing to work hard.
Yeah. Yeah. For him. And you kind of always need someone to push you, whether it's a parent or a friend or something, or at least for me, maybe I need someone to push me, but for me, my wife pushes me every day, and you just need people to kind of push you along. And for my dad, he saw that I had more to give. It's like, yeah, you're doing really good with your little business, but you're working 2 hours a day and playing video games for another 30. Why is that going to be the best thing for my son? And I look at that with Hank and my kid, and it's like, no, I want him to experience pain, not because I'm this evil father that needs power or whatever it is. It's the more pain Hank can experience, not too young. Right now he's fine. He can do whatever he wants and he's good. But the more pain he can experience through his growing up years, 12 to 18, the more work, the more deliberate choices of pain, not forced. I don't ever want to force him, and I don't think my dad was forcing. He was forcing me to get a job, but it wasn't like he was flexible on it too. The more pain, the less pain they experience in the long term. The happier they're for their 50s and their 60s are, which is also a big reason why Crisp is so important to me. Is anyone I've seen that's incredibly successful sacrifice 10 years of their life. Whatever 10 years, and it could be that when they're 50 and they're sacrificing 10 years, it could be when they're 20 and they sacrifice 10 years. After they give 10 years of pain, whatever it is, they're able to succeed forever. They can ride on that for the rest of their life. And so that's been kind of my motivation since Crisp. Is like, it's painful. I have painful moments every day of my life, more pain than I ever knew I could experience. And my dad, who's owned his company, my brothers who have owned company, they're like, that's the best thing. You're moving the right way. You're going. And at that moment, when I was a kid, it was, well, I'm not challenging myself. It's not hard to go out for 3 hours and make $300. It's like, yeah, that's more than enough money than I will ever use on candy. It was, can you work 20 hours and do school and keep your friends happy and that social aspect and be on a sports team and whatever else I was doing? It's like, can you do all of those? And that was way more of a challenge than make $300, which was a good lesson for me.
I love it. You know, the podcast is called Maker Manager Money. Do you consider yourself, and the concept is maker plus manager equals money, right? You need to make something, create some kind of value. You need to manage it. You need to go out and sell it. You need to manage the operations, those kinds of things. And eventually that hopefully leads to money. Do you consider yourself more of a maker or a manager or a mix?
It depends on the time in my company. And I think the only way you're successful in a startup is you switch between the two so fast. It's like every day you're like, oh, yeah, I'm creating our sales process. The next day we have way too many cells. And so I am in the kitchen creating our how to make paninis the best way process or whatever it is. And it's where I've slowly tried to move is I kind of break it down into three things. So I add another one to maker, manager, and then I say doer. Maker is someone that creates, that's building something. I'm trying to be now. I've never been this, and that's why I say trying, but I'm trying to be 80% creating the next steps, clearing off the next step for my company to grow. Setting up the next program, setting up the next accountability structure, 10% managing. I'm probably at 10% managing and 10% doing. So I'm sweeping the floors. I'm doing the systems that are in place, and I'm trying to get to 0 on that, because if I'm the one sweeping the floors, then we have a hole somewhere. If I'm the one that has to clean a grease trap or whatever, which I did the other day, which is the worst job on planet Earth, I just feel for anyone who has to clean a grease trap. So it's like, I'll do it. Funny story, we had to toss it. We're moving out of one of our locations and we had to just toss this grease trap, or I thought it would be smart to just toss it. I went to throw it away and it's filled with grease, and I just like locked up all the sides, and I'm like, yeah, this is safe. This is totally fine. And I go to pour it or throw it into the garbage, and it just pours all over me. And if you've ever smelled the grease trap, it's the worst smell on planet Earth. By far. There's nothing worse. And so I got to drive home in the grossest smell ever. My wife was like straight to the shower, like, don't even touch me. You're so gross right now. But so I try not to do a lot where it's almost, I'm not enabling my team to grow or create. And then managing, I'm now at the point where I have really good leaders, and I want to see how they're managing. And I want to just kind of light the fire whenever needed. But besides that, I'm trying to manage less. And right now I'm probably at 50% creating, 30% managing, 20% doing. That's how I look at it. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where I'm at. And slowly, as I'm going to those next steps, I want to kind of be in that creating mode of where's the direction of our company? What are the goals? What are the next steps? What does it look like? What's the vision of Crisp? And how do I train my team to do that?
And it's hard to be hands off sometimes, because this is the way you've always done it. And you had to do everything at the beginning. So what are you doing to help you hand off responsibilities? Are you documenting those processes? And what tools and what kinds of things are you doing to hand over processes and workflows to someone else? Yeah.
So there's a few. The first thing is working hand in hand with these people is the best way. They see how it's done. And then what I've been doing is I've been having those people that I've worked hand in hand with for 2-3 months, have them write the processes. And what's been good about that is they're creating, oh yeah, I forgot about this step. Oh yeah, I am supposed to do this. And they're reteaching themselves. And then I review it and I'm making sure that it's good. But this has been a really cool system for us is, hey, slowly create what your job is. If you were to create your job or write it down, what would that look like? And so slowly my leaders are doing that and starting to kind of own it. And then it's really feels like theirs. It's like, cool, this is what I think is going to equal all of my goals, all of my expectations. The standard of my job is this. And then you can say, no, that standard's ridiculous. That's a goal. You can have that as a goal. Your standard's actually much lower. It's here. And so them creating that has been a really cool experience as they're typing this up, as they're answering the hard questions of like, ooh, what is most important? What is the most important thing for my job? And seeing them do that has helped solidify their training. But a lot of that came from us 2 months, 3 months working hand in hand, building the recipes. And then, or like for my kitchen staff or my cooks, it's like, cool, these are the recipes. This is what we're doing. And then taking their input and changing things. And yeah, that's kind of, hopefully that answers your question.
It does. So that's just a Word or Google Doc or what? Like
yes. So
and then do you have an intranet where you're sharing all this, or
yes.
what tools do you use to?
Yeah, we use Google Drive. That's kind of the easiest for us. Mm-hmm. And then we but a lot of these are just their verticals. It's just the kitchen. So I have my company broken down to 4 direct verticals is what I call them. But you have the kitchen, you have the event team or front of house. So the team that's going to be in front of the clients. You have the prep team, which is the kitchen crew, but then you have the marketing team, and then you have accounting, and the accountant just is himself. But yes, you have these 4 teams, and they need to know kind of what everyone else is doing. But generally, really, as they focus on their vertical and they focus on what they can do, they're lifting where they stand, and they're able to lift much higher than if and so that's why I say, yeah, there's Google Drive where they could read it. But if I knew of, and like my marketing director, if she's reading everything about the kitchen or has to know, I'm like, no, focus on marketing. If you can lift that perfectly, if you're hitting your goals every time, if you're reaching higher, that's the best way you help operations. That's the best way you help accounting, is if everything's running smooth in your spot. And so even though I meet with them, and if they see something that's happening in one of the other verticals, we have a conversation, or we change that. If it's a good enough idea, it's like, cool, we'll change that. But yeah, typically I'm pretty strict on focus on whatever you can control. And so yes, there's Google Drive that has this all, but it's kind of lift where you stand. I don't know if that makes it.
It does. So, I mean, like if they had employees that work for them, they can share. They can share it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you have employees all over running at different events, and sometimes maybe you have 2 events going on at the same time, whatever. I assume that happens sometimes.
We have 4. We can do up to 4.
We can do up to 4. Okay.
I know.
That's amazing. So how do you communicate? Is it just through text, or like, do you have some kind of apps that you're using to stay in touch and stay on top of things?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways. We're big in learning and teaching in the best way for our teams. So a lot of it's texting, because we're just working with 16-year-olds. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is, for our customers, we've already been texting or emailing or figuring out all details. Then we do a call, and we really go through 50 questions, making sure we know exactly what they're feeling or ready for their event. Because it's totally different when you're talking to someone on the phone and I say, hey, do you have power? Versus in an email, do you have power? And she's like, yeah, we have 1 outlet. It's like, no, we need 15 outlets for your event if it's a crazy event. But those are 2 different things and 2 different ways of catching it. Same thing with our event teams. So whoever's running the event, we could be texting them all week about, hey, here are some details, or they could read, and we have big packets filled with all of the details of the event, what type of event, how many people, what we're serving, what time to get there. We have like all of these written down, but we also do a voice memo, because it's like things are going to be emphasized totally different than when you read it, than when you listen to it in a voice memo. When I go, hey, Waco, this person really cares about gluten-free paninis. If you don't bring gluten-free paninis as like a backup, come on, make sure you have those. Versus them reading, bring gluten-free paninis on like a packet. That's forgotten about. That voice memo is not.
But it's a voice memo that you've texted to the employees?
So we send it to the team. And so the team, when they're going to double check everything before they leave for these events, they're hearing us in their head from what they listened to earlier that week and reading it on the packet. And so
that's amazing.
So that's kind of our biggest thing is, how do we make communication like there's just no miscommunications? Because you can't. Here's the crazy thing about catering. If I forget some tongs, okay, so it's like, oh crap, you're 45 minutes behind. You're either hopping in a car, driving 45 minutes back to the kitchen and driving back, or you're driving to a Walmart and then you have to check out. You have to get the company card. It puts you 45 minutes behind. And that's one set of tools. If you forget 3 things and you slowly notice them as you're setting up, it's so much harder in those scenarios. And that's why catering can be so painful is, crap, you can't forget anything. And these events are too important. Even if it's a corporate event, even if it's the live event that you guys are doing, if I forgot something, you would be like, really? Like, what's going on? And it's like, it could be one of 100 things. And it's just, it fell between a seat or whatever it is, but it's a very exact process.
So you have a checklist somewhere. There's a document for each event.
Yes. And they sign everything.
Do you use Monday.com or any kind of software or anything?
Physical.
Or is it just
I care about physical because, and so we have it all online. When we create them, it's all online and we have all of these.
But you print them out.
But we print them out because I want them to sign their name. Because when they check something off, when they check something off and they say, yes, we have tongs, and I get a call or I see on the checklist missing tongs, or I get a call from the customer and they're like, hey, you were 45 minutes behind because of da-da-da-da-da. And luckily, we know we forget stuff and we know everyone's human. So we plan for more than enough time to set up. We don't have, like, if we forget something, we have extra people that can leave or we have, but I'm just, And I was a little exaggerated, I was exaggerating on that, but it's the truth. It's like, if we really did it based on numbers, it's like someone is losing 45 minutes of time.
Right.
And so it's so we have checklists and we require everyone to sign their names because it's way more powerful when
for sure.
Yeah. And then I call them and I say, Cole, why'd you sign your name? What was going on? And it's like, I'm sorry. And it's a cool thing about my team is they just own it. They just do. And that can't be taught. We just have been lucky with the teammates we have they just own it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, I think, the whole digital first and technology allows you to do little, you can tap on the screen and say, that's done. That's done. But when you physically write something and check something, it's so much more powerful. I don't know what it is in your head, but I love that you do that. I know we've covered so much ground. I wanted to ask a few more questions, then I have a lightning round of questions. But so what from your English degree has helped you the most in business?
By far. And it's funny. I'm an English degree with a emphasis. This is a random emphasis in fiction. So like fantasy fiction, like it's nerdy. I'm nerdy. That's the first and foremost background of me. But no, for me, the biggest thing is being creative is way more important to me than almost anything else. And that goes back to what I kind of said earlier. There's a solution no matter what. There just is. Are you smart enough to find it? Or are you humble enough to find it? And that's why I love this English degree is you're writing poems, you're writing books, you're writing that have never been created before. They're just random ideas that have gone in your head. And being creative has been the most important thing for my business because it was nothing 2 years ago. And when there's a problem that no one can figure out, Elon just said something about this, which we love Elon. Yeah, Elon's great. But he said owners of businesses, they hire really expensive CEOs and CFOs when those very intelligent people don't know the answer. That's when they go to Elon. And it's like, I kind of feel that where everyone on my team is very intelligent. And when they don't know the answer, those are the questions, those are the problems, those are the issues that I have to answer. And so because of that, I have to be creative. I have to think more outside the box than any of my very intelligent, in some ways, way smarter than me leaders that don't have a good solution. And so that's been my biggest thing is, can I think outside of the box? We had an exercise in college that was write what you don't believe for a week. So any post you see, write the opposite of what you actually believe. So political posts, write what your opposition should say. Right. And that was a really cool exercise for us because it was like, there's solutions or there's reasons why people think whatever. And so being creative has been a really powerful thing from that English major. I always laugh because I'm like, ChatGPT took my jobs, but at the same time, nothing has prepared me better for being creative than that part of my major.
I love that answer as a fellow English major. So, and just briefly, like, what are you using AI for your business in any way?
As much as I can. I'm not we've talked about this. We talked about this on the phone and I'm like, ooh, I need to learn. And I try to learn. I use ChatGPT, the basic model, and it saves me for the 15-page thing that I need to write or the contracts I'm writing or things like that. It's helpful. I need to use it way more, but I think everyone does. Like, I think everyone needs to use AI more. I just don't know it enough. I need to, but I don't.
But at least you're playing with it.
Yes, I'm messing around with it. I have fun with it.
And that's what everyone should do is start playing with it, get to know it. Just have fun with it for now. Just go for it. You're not gonna break anything. Start playing with it, at least personally.
I don't know, Dan was a fun little mess around with moment of ChatGPT. You heard about Dan?
No, I didn't.
Dan is do anything now. So they tricked ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has all these safeguards and rules, and they tricked ChatGPT to now be named Dan, which is do anything now. And they gave it tokens. So this was one of the first hackers of ChatGPT, created it and it turned itself into Dan. And so they had to shut down the whole thing for a week. This is with one of the first few weeks. And it was do anything now. It was a very funny, and it would answer any question you wanted. It was way more vulgar. It's this very funny, experiment. So you might break ChatGPT, but mess around with it. Yes, I'm a fan of it. Yes.
I love it. So is there a book that you recommend the most to people?
Yes, there's two. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, because it's just the most mentally tough book on planet Earth. If you want to know of a human and what humans are capable of, this is a guy who's lived what those capabilities are. It's unbelievable. The second one, this is more important. Anytime someone asks me, what should I start my business? And I go back to I asked a mentor, it's the same thing. Hey, should I start this business? It's a good idea. And he said, and he's this multi-millionaire now. And he goes, read this book. It's called Endurance. And it's Shackleton's Adventure to Antarctica. And it's the worst story on planet Earth. And it is, he said, my mentor was like, well, it's it's the exact feelings you're going to feel owning a business is what Shackleton felt. And if you think you'd survive being Shackleton, then yes, start a business. If you think you would roll over and die, don't. It's not for you. And then I'll kind of, that's all I'm going to say about that, but read it. It's painful. And my advice is the same. If you think you would survive as William Shackleton, then 100% start a business. There's nothing better. It's so painful, but such a cool outcome, such an amazing experience. And if you'd rather not be Shackleton, then don't, because that's what it feels like many days of owning a business. So yeah, those are my two. E-Myth's another good one, but I love reading. It's thanks to my English major, I loved reading all these books, but those are my two big ones. Endurance and Can't Hurt Me. And E-Myth once you've started your business, but like 6 months into starting your business. That's my advice on that one.
Those are great recommendations.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So I've got a lightning round of questions that I ask each of my guests.
Cool.
What is your favorite candy bar?
Ooh, $100,000. Entrepreneur. No, I
love it. Favorite music artist?
Favorite music, Taylor Swift. I met her and she dedicated a song to me.
At a concert?
Yeah. Stopped her whole concert, said, met this really cute couple before. Here you guys go. Sadly, I was on a date before I was dating my wife. So I can't, that story is a sore spot, but also not the coolest story ever. Yeah. So
where was the concert at?
Vivint. So it was Vivint. We kind of got last second backstage passes before the event and it was a meet and greet. And so we met Taylor Swift and she was like, and I said, hey, are you singing any songs on your, are you singing any songs that you weren't prepared for or that you weren't planning on? She goes, I typically have one or two. You have any suggestions? And I'm like, if you could sing the song, Our Song, that would be awesome. Like, I don't know if you've heard that. Our Song is a slam screen door. Yes. Great song. Amazing. One of the best. And she goes, all right, consider it done. So we go up to our seats. We think she's just going to sing it. And she stops the whole concert, goes, hey, I don't know where you guys ended up, but I met the most adorable couple. This one's for you. Very cool. Broke up with the girl like a month later. So,
but still, you have a great
cool story.
Yeah, it's an awesome story.
Yes.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite cereal?
Cereal, Honey Bunches of Oats. And I say bunches because inside joke, but Honey Bunches of Oats.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Google or Microsoft?
Google.
Dogs or cats?
Cats. But I am not an animal person, sadly.
So you have
dogs,
no pets?
No pets. Well, dogs just bite me. I like dogs better, but I get bit more than any human I know. I've probably been bit 20 times. Yeah, it's just a weird thing. Weird phenomenon. Some of it came from knocking on doors and people let their dogs out on me. And it's like, yes, but yeah, kind of random. So,
it's okay. Yeah. Phantom or Les Mis?
Definitely Phantom, but I love Les Mis. That's a hard one though. But I love Phantom, and I the Phantom you just feel for. That's the hard part. Is you just love him.
I love that answer. So you're into food. You have a catering company. So I assume you're into food.
Yeah.
If you are going to go eat and you want to go out to eat in Utah, what's your go-to?
It's hard. Do you have a date night, or are we saying just for food?
You could categorize and list two or three.
I got two or three. The first is my guilty pleasure, ranch Fritas, and I get a mixed breakfast burrito. It's the greasiest. It's if I want to feel like I'm 4,000 pounds. I just want to kind of let that fat boy sing. That's when I go to Ranch Doritos, and I love it. Date night, I love Cheesecake Factory. I just like it. I like their apps. I like the deep fried avocado egg roll things. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
I've never had
They're
them. No.
unbelievable. Okay. They're so good. They have these little like crunchy white things. I don't even know what they are, but they're awesome. And, but fancy, I'm Ruth Chris. If I'm going really fancy, it's hard to beat Ruth Chris. I know. It's just the best. It's just so good. The meat is an unbelievable cut. It's an unbelievable presentation. It's everything. It's the experience. It's like, oh, here's a plate that will burn your face if you touch it, or hands or anything if you touch it. So don't, but it's fun. That makes it kind of fun. You can cook the meat on the plate. It's just hard to beat. Yes.
I said it before, but I've never been so hungry on a podcast. So thank you for your descriptions. And I need to make a reservation at Ruth's Chris because I haven't been there for a long time. I think before COVID, it's been a long time since I've been there.
That's
so
awesome.
I love their steak for sure.
Yeah.
It is the best. Yes. So how do people find you?
Yes. Easiest way is our website, catercrisp.com. But if you're just curious, the funnest is our Instagram, and that is crisp.catering. I know I should have kept the same username, but crisp.catering for Instagram, catercrisp.com for our website. But our Instagram's fun. So get excited to be hungrier. Look at how we make our food, how it all works. But if you want to contact us for catering, if you have any special requests or anything like that, find us on our website and reach out.
Daniel, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, to hear your entrepreneurial journey and the lessons that you've learned. And I just love the way you describe your values, what your employees are doing, what you're doing as a company. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and learn and get to know you better. So thank you so much for being on the podcast this evening.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. This is so fun. And this is so cool. So thank you.